Hello everybody, this is ManuS and welcome back to another Eternal Contenders deck tech. I am back from GP Prague with a new deck, so let's take a look at what I got for you this time in Eternal Contenders. Alright, so I have been messing around with Feln Killers in the last 2 or 3 weeks probably. You might have seen me play it on stream to success a few times. If not, here you see it for the first time. Savagery is kind of an innocuous but kind of nice card because it offers a whole new possibility for the kind of killer strategy that we knew from before. So yeah, this deck plays very similar to the old Feln Killers, except that it is in Feln and therefore has a couple of different tools. But we'll just go over the cards and then yeah, see how the deck works. Alright, so first off we have 2 drops for Dusk and for Ripknife Assassin. Dusk is just a very strong 2-drop with the Berserk, giving something like Vara, Feastcaller or even Caiphus Berserk is really powerful. And even on a Ripknife Assassin it is pretty nice, and it obviously has nice synergies with the merchant getting a unit out of the market. Doesn't have the best fighting or killering body, but that's what we have other cards for. And then we have Ripknife Assassin, another card that we know from the old Feln Killers. Just a solid 2-drop. Deadly also makes it a solid killer throwaway target. It will basically always die when you use it with killer, but it can killer anything and give you a Warcry in the process and even deal a damage to the opponent. Also, the Warcry is just nice, making everything that we draw later a bit better. Then we have for Karen Merchant, mainly because I used to have Yennefer Merchant, even though it has a bit of tension with Vara, but it just fits slightly better, because when Aegis is good, it's great, and you can just not play Vara if you have active Aegis out. And it gave you 7 Savagery, among others, which is pretty nice. But I feel like with the change to Yennefer Merchant, it's just too bad. Like, I don't want to play a 2-2, even a 2-2 Aegis for 3 power. And getting a 2-1 Deadly is totally fine. This blocks very well, it even attacks decently, and it, at worst, can be used with Savagery as well to trade into whatever unit we need to kill. Then we have 3 Vara Vengeance Seeker with 1 in the market. Since I definitely wanted 1 unit in the market, both to increase consistency and also for the synergy with Dusk into Merchant. But let's talk a moment about the rest of the market before we move on with the rest of the cards. 1 Dark Return, simply because I wanted to have sort of 1 puzzle piece in the market, and since we can't have a mirror image or Savagery in the market with Karen Merchant, a Dark Return is the card of choice here, allowing us to rebuy, say, a Vara with Killer on it, which is super strong, because then she's really big, has Overwhelm and Deadly, so she's gonna deal all but 1 damage to the opponent and gain us a lot of life, and so on. So that's part of the heart of the deck. Also, being able to recure Caiphus or Feastcaller is equally good. Then I have a Haunting Scream, mainly just as sort of like another way to rebuy killer or yeah, just deal a lot of damage to the opponent. This can just sort of finish off the opponent a fair share of the time with a big Vara. It's not that great, and it's definitely a debatable slot, but it felt like the deck could sometimes use some finishing power against more reactive and grindier decks, so this is what I have at the moment. Then just an Annihilate as a fairly cheap and fairly flexible removal, and then a Feeding Time as a more expensive but universal removal to make sure that we can deal with certain things that we need to be dealing with permanently. This is mainly in the market actually, because Savagery is a card, and Savagery can be really problematic if you don't Feeding Time it. If Savagery wouldn't exist, this would probably be something else, because I'm usually fine with just an Annihilate in the market. Okay, then as remaining units we have 4 Jotun Feastcaller, just a very good threat. It has Aegis, it generates card advantage. If you give it killer with Savagery, it can draw a card right away the turn you play it, and then the next turn it's already attacking for 2. It is also a great card to Mirror Image and Dark Return, especially after its ability ticked up once or twice. Also keep in mind that if you want to Mirror Image it, attack first if you can, and then Mirror Image it, because obviously the tick count on its ability gets copied as well. So if it is on 1 and you attack and copy it, then you get to draw 2 cards with your copy unit rather than 1. And last but not least, we have Caiphus, a card that fits very well into the very mid-rangey strategy, and also into the strategy of Dark Return and Mirror Image, giving you multiple powerful Caiphuses, making that another route to victory, just overwhelming the opponent with a ton of battle skills on 1 or multiple Caiphuses. Yeah, and then we have the Dark Returns with 1 in the market that I mentioned, just to recure our key units. Also synergizes with Dusk Raider's Berserk, because if you Dark Return something, you draw it from your void and it gets Berserk. And it also just lets you rebuy things with killer. Speaking of killer, Savagery is our source of giving a unit killer. Before, as I mentioned, I had virtually 7 thanks to Yennefer Merchant. Now we only have 4, but that's fine. Like, before we had merchants, killer decks always only had like 4 killer effects. It's not completely ideal, but it's fine. The deck has other tools, and the units are also very good at doing things on their own, so the deck is not super dependent on having a Savagery every time. Then I have 4 Shakedown, simply because the deck can be a bit slow out of the gate. Shakedown is great disruption. It takes opposing merchants and smugglers, or just their interaction to stop our turn 4 Vara, for example, or just picks apart their curve a bit, slowing them down. Then the remaining Annihilates that aren't in the market, since it's still a pretty important removal, especially early on, to make sure that you can sort of get into the game and then take over with your killer recursion. Then 2 Rindra's Choice to complement it, because there are a bunch of good targets for this, but I felt like you don't want too many, because I had 3 at some point, and it still felt like it's sitting in my hand too often, even though it has 2 modes. It's just more narrow than Annihilate in my experience. And then we have the 4 Mirror Images as additional ways to copy our powerful cards and replicate our Savagery for free. And then we have 29 power plus 3 Vara's favor, so 32 in total, which is usually the minimum I want in a deck that has 6 drops that it wants to play on curve, especially if it has ways to provide flood protection between Nightfall, Merchant, and also Vara's favor and Cabal Standard and Scout from Crest, helping you manage your power draws nicely. Favor is still just pretty solid. I didn't want to run 4, so 2 or 3 is the right number. It's just a solid early removal spell that the deck is particularly happy for when facing down aggressive decks with a lot of their X1s, or just an Aegis when you don't have a Vara to pop it with her favor instead. Just don't run too many, because we already have 8 depleted power that can get real clunky real quick. I couldn't fault anyone for maybe shaving another one for a Shadow Sigil or a Primal Sigil. And yeah, the rest of the power base is just a bunch of Sigils, 12 duels, and 4 Cabal Standard. Cabal Standard has been playing really well. It synergizes very well with the killer, because the quick draw also works on killer, and also in combat, because the deck has all these deadly units like Ripknife, Assassin, and Merchant, and even Feastcaller can punch through a lot if it suddenly is 6 attack and has quick draw. So it just makes attacking very easy if you have one of these, and it also happens to synergize with the Berserk from Dusk Raider. Just been a great card in the deck, and of course allows you to run a safe amount of power without flooding too much. Okay, that's my current list. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as the people on stream did. I think it's a pretty cool deck, and it's also quite competitive. I've been doing pretty well on stream with it. If you want to see more footage than the few games that we're gonna play now, feel free to check out the VODs on my Twitch channel for more gameplay. I think I played it on stream like 3 times at least, and in the 2 10-game sets that I tracked, I went like 7 and 3 both times, and I think I played a handful of games where I didn't do quite as well, but were less than 10. Okay, as usual, before we hop into some games, make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and not miss out on any future content. And of course, if you want to help support the free content, please consider whitelisting EternalTitans.com and YouTube. That would really help us a lot. And now on to the games. See you in a moment.